apologies before I begin for my version of Slovenian version of English. So there is also an advantage to it, so it makes us all sound a little bit like our famous philosopher Slavoj Žižek, even if we are not that bright. And according to the new regulation, you have to mention Slavoj Žižek at least twice during every speech outside the Republic of Slovenia. So I did it once. And speaking about this topic, I will come to Žižek later. I have a question for all of you to start this presentation, which will be actually about redesigning the image of anthropologists. Are there any anthropologists in the room? Could you please raise your hands? Sarah, are you an anthropologist? Okay. So we have at least 3 anthropologists. The rest is non-anthropologists. Perfect. So I have a question for all of you, and I have a little award for the first one to answer. What is an anthropologist like? Please raise your hands. The first one gets a little present. It's you? Okay, just say it. Sorry?
It's a bit controversial.
Just say it.
A lot of white people. A lot of white men.
Okay. A lot of black men. White men. Okay. Wearing
like this coffee color.
khaki. I thought cocky. Khaki colored clothes. Okay, and socks and sandals, I guess. Okay, perfect. Everyone. Very interesting. Okay, I have an award for you because you were the first to dare to answer Žižek's book, Living in the End of Times. Congratulations. It's a very depressing book, but an inspiring one too. So the same question was set to at the BBC radio show, and this presented in McClancy's excellent article, The Literary Image of Anthropologists. And here are some answers of the radio audience. Anthropologists are quite picky, argumentative, very critical on others' behavior. Bearded, long-haired men. Serious, but sometimes a bit doughty. So the questions were a little bit similar to these ones here. Okay, you did not mention that they're a bit doughty. But we have a problem here. So anthropologists have a serious problem because the image is already taken by the philosopher. So this is again Slavoj Žižek on the photo. And so somehow we need to restructure our stereotypical image. For example, there are stereotypical images in other fields of humanities and social sciences. Archaeologists have this great stereotypical image of Indiana Jones. And this is an interesting one. So if you put in Google psychologists, these are the first pictures that you will get. So there is always a white man solving women's problems. So you can see women are lying down, and there is a white man in the background solving their problems. So this is apparently also a kind of stereotypical image of psychologists, but at least they have some kind of image. So what is an anthropologist like? Still this question. So many times this image comes to people's mind. Some of you might recognize this man here in the middle, so dressed in white. This is Bronislaw Malinowski, one of the founding fathers of anthropology. In Slovenia, we have another problem because we have 2 names. We have anthropologists, which are less known, and more commonly known label is ethnologist. And then if you ask people, what do anthropologists do? Well, they study these folk costumes, traditional buildings like this double hayrack, and sometimes they mix us with enologists, which are experts for wine, which is sometimes great beginning of a debate. And in 2016, we carried out quite an extensive research. What do anthropologists actually do? Especially we were interested, what do they do outside academia? And we did a study mainly through LinkedIn. So at that time, me and my colleagues that prepared an article about the topic, we tried to connect to all anthropologists in Europe and finally in the world. So it was a kind of Pokemon Go game, so we had to collect all of them. And if you are an anthropologist, there is 99% of chance that you're connected to me somehow after that experiment. And we found approximately 300 anthropologists, applied anthropologists in a strict sense of term, only 300 working outside academia in Europe, and several thousand in a broad sense. I will explain you what the broad sense means. So first here are the statistics about what anthropologists that label themselves as anthropologists do outside academia. Many of them are business anthropologists, approximately 1/5 development anthropologists, then we have 1/5 of design anthropologists, organizational anthropologists, and so on. And here are some common labels. So these are the labels that they put to themselves in their LinkedIn profiles. Business anthropologists, design anthropologists, UX anthropologists. We even have in Europe one chief anthropologist. And then we have those who can be understood as anthropologists in a broader sense of term, such as museologists, ethnomusicologists, ethnochoreologists, cultural animators, and so on. And then we try to identify which are the epicenters of applied anthropology in Europe, where we can find the most of them. So one is definitely the Western Europe, the UK, Denmark, and the Netherlands, then the Scandinavian countries. Interestingly, Italy, there were many anthropologists applied in companies, especially in the field of design, and very interesting example from Italy, there is one anthropologist involved in a football team dealing with intercultural relations in the football team. And we tried to spot also some future emerging epicenters of anthropology, and a very perspective region are the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, perhaps even Russia, then Spain and Portugal, and hopefully, we had to add it, Slovenia, and other countries of the southeastern and central Europe. So the next question, I don't have any awards left, but still. How can anthropology be popularized through interdisciplinary projects? So I will present an example of our own project that I coordinated. It was called DriveGreen, and it lasted for 3 years. And half of the team was anthropologists, half of the 10-people team were anthropologists, and another half engineers in electro-engineering and telematics. And the goal of the team was to develop a culture-sensitive and user-friendly smartphone app for lowering CO2 emissions by monitoring driving habits and encouraging eco-driving. So I hope all the words are approximately clear, except maybe culture-sensitive is a bit weird one. But I will explain later what does it mean. And the original idea of the team, this is why I needed the glass, was to develop an app that would automatically show you how you drive. So we wanted to imitate a little bit Toyota's app, A Glass of Water, which works like this. So you have a glass of water on your phone, of course. It's a virtual glass of water, and it's completely full. And then, while driving, and it all works only with sensors, while driving, so if you step on a brake, water spills on one side. And if you press on the pedal, the water spills on the other side. And the more water there is left in the glass, the better driver you are. And then, so we wanted initially, and we even started to make something like this, but then while starting to doing this kind of app, we carried out an ethnography, actually multi-sited ethnography in various places, Ljubljana, Belgrade, Budapest, Newcastle, and Durham, and we realized a couple of things. First of all, people don't want to use smartphone apps in their car, plus it's dangerous, so it's quite a self-evident thing. Second, people don't care about small savings that you can make by using this kind of apps. They can help you actually reduce gas consumption and lower CO2 emissions for 10% approximately. But when you're in a hurry, when you have to go to the kindergarten or to school or to take your children to school or then go to work, then you're in a hurry and you don't care about 10% of savings, right? And what we realized is that people do take care of something else, health and well-being. So we had to make a switch to 2 additional fields and make an app that would motivate people to move more. Because facts about how little people move are shocking. So I don't know if you know, but sitting is new smoking. So we sit over 9 hours per day, adults. Young ones are either lay or sit or rest and are somehow immobile. So the young ones, this was a research from the UK and Ireland, over 19 hours per day. So these kind of results are quite shocking. And so this is what people actually want to do, move more. So we made an app which shows you first on the individual level, then on the city level, and finally maybe on the level of the planet, how active you are and how to make a move in a new way. And we named the app 1, 2, 3. So these are the 3 steps. First for you individually, second for the city, third for the planet. And it's designed always. So this is the culture specific app because each app is tailored to the specifics of the city. So it's not one size fits all approach. Instead, we give people something that is adapted to their own environment, social, cultural. And this is the appearance of the app. It automatically shows you how much you run, how much you walk, how much you cycle, how much you use the public transport. This was a bit tricky to develop. And how much you use a car. And also how active you are in comparison to other people in the city. And then we included actions, and then you can collect badges. Some of them are individual, and some of them are adapted or made for use in the society. And this was, in my opinion, the most important result which came from the people. So we realized that people don't want just to compete, they also want to cooperate, especially if they can cooperate to beat somebody who is a representative of the capital in the city, or the representative of the city power, for example, the mayor of Ljubljana. So we developed a system called indirect micro donations, and the whole point is that people unite for a certain time, for a certain period of the month, let's say for 2 weeks, in certain activity, cycling, and they challenge the mayor or somebody else. I mean, the mayor is often a victim in these presentations, and we say like, dear Mayor, do you dare to compete against the users of the app in Ljubljana for 2 weeks? So if you win, you're free, and it's ideally that has to be followed by media. If you lose, then you have to pay a certain amount from your own budget, 3,000 to 4,000 euros, let's say, for improvement of cycling infrastructure in the city. So we can in this way challenge also, of course, other mayors, such as the mayor of Melbourne, for example, in cycling. And then this is a challenge for that person, and this is a challenge for the city. So this was a result which actually came from the people, and this is why we made a U-turn in development of the app, because this was quite universal. So people really like to compete against somebody else, and this is why we called it indirect micro donations, because somebody else is paying for every step or every kilometer on bicycle that you make. So from this approach, there came out several other new projects. So one of them was presented by Sarah before, and we got through this people-centered approach, 4 New Horizon projects, which is quite a competitive call of the European Commission. And two of them are here, 2 of them are really recent and don't have a logo yet. And one of the projects that uses the same approach is the Invisible Life of Waste that I presented the last time in a workshop. And this is the scheme that was presented more in details by Sarah. And in a way, it's also the secret sauce why we get these projects, because every time we include this scheme or this diagram and describe it and tailor the project, which is more expert-based to the people-centered side, we get the project. So far it has worked. This is why engineers started to like us too. So the final question, I think is the final. How can we redesign the image of anthropology? We started doing this in 2010 when establishing the EASA Applied Anthropology Network, and organized then in 2013 the first event with this presumptuous title, Why the World Needs Anthropologists. Actually, for the first year, it was supposed to be a question. Why does the world need anthropologists? But then we said, no, let's why the world needs anthropologists. And in the first year in Amsterdam, we had almost 200 participants who joined the event. And we tried to do it in a way like TED Talk for anthropologists. So the speakers have to say in a really clear and understandable way, why does the world need them? And I always say, and we used to say always to the speakers, please don't use the words such as hermeneutics, post-structuralism, ambiguities on the stage. If you say something like that, you have to leave the stage. And some of them follow the instructions, some of them don't. So here are some speakers from the first year. And then in the second year, we moved to Italy with the subtitle, because every year the event has a subtitle. And that year it was Coming Out of the Ivory Tower, because we wanted to show that it's time for us to go out of this kind of institution to change the world. And in Ljubljana, the event was quite a big success. So we had over 450 participants at that time, with keynote speakers such as Genevieve Bell, Thomas Hilland Eriksson, Joanna Breitenbach. And we invited that year somebody, and I think this is also a good trick, how to attract non-anthropologists, Lučka Kajfež-Bogataj, who is a famous climatologist from Slovenia. And she's also a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And she said at the beginning, why the world needs anthropologists. So this is important, otherwise we're just like these Amway meetings, you know, like, yeah, we're so great. And cheering to each other, but you don't make a significant change. And here we got somebody else, respected scholar, who said, yes, the world needs anthropologists. So these are, again, some slides from Ljubljana. A very important element is to include some fun. So to show that anthropologists are not boring. And this is why I invited a band in that year and kept that kind of atmosphere in the next years. In Tartu, we dealt with humanization of technologies and got, luckily, Stem Tamkivi as a speaker. If you don't know who the person is, I'm sure you know about the technology called Skype. So he's one of the founders of Skype, and also the first CEO of Skype. And luckily, his wife is an anthropologist, so it was a bit easier to persuade him to come. And so here are some other speakers from that year. And we started doing workshops for the first time in that year. Why? Because people wanted, if they go to a bit remote places such as Tartu, they wanted to stay a bit longer, to do things together, to be creative. And this has proven to be a really successful formula. And plus some fun. So here is Daniel Miller on the dance floor in the spotlight. And then we moved in 2017 to Durham with a topic which is relevant also for the Emerging Technologies Lab, Powering the Planet. We proposed at that time to Sarah Pink for the second time, I think, or third time, to come. And she said no. And then we didn't get so many people. But we made very nice badges, which said, why the world needs, and then your name. So this is what people really liked, and they still wear the badges, you know. Somehow it makes you feel a bit more important. And plus, we had some special stalls at the so-called hotspot. For example, there was this young girl who made cake, and all the money she collected was then went to the refugees in the UK. So it was a kind of special project of that year. And so in 2018, Sarah Pink finally came. I think we asked her for the fourth time, but this was actually her topic. So it was designed around the topic that Sarah deals with, designing the future. And other speakers were that year Anna Kirach, Jeremy Hunt, and José Manuel dos Santos. And I think it was, in my opinion, the most successful event because in this series, because it attracted so many different people, designers, managers, engineers, anthropologists, of course, and others who were able to test together the new fields of anthropology and see through these glasses what the future of anthropology might be like. And to answer questions, this burning question of anthropology, because if we go to a bar, you know, we say that we do actually field work at that time, but some other people like designers, engineers say, oh, you're just hanging out. And in October this year, the event is moving to Oslo, to Norway. So everybody is welcome to come. By the way, there is no fee for the event, so the event is free for everyone. It is financed by donations of the people, so voluntary donations of the people, and by sponsorships. So we really want to keep it free, open for those, especially for those who cannot otherwise afford this kind of things, to hear what can be the benefits of anthropology. Okay, so the final question, what does the future hold for anthropology? So Sarah seems a bit worried. No? You're okay? So let's have a look in this crystal ball. Well, actually, James Peacock had a look in the ball already in 1997, and he predicted 3 possible scenarios. So I adapted them a little bit to be more visual, but the first scenario is the dodo scenario. So because anthropology will remain as it has been in the past, it will gradually die out. So another, more optimistic scenario is the living dead scenario. So anthropologists will keep walking on, but bite somebody now and then to spread the disease. But that will be it. And then the third scenario, the most optimistic scenario, is the superhero scenario. So anthropologists will work in interdisciplinary teams. They will work in academia. Anthropology will really flourish in governmental, non-governmental sectors. They will deal directly with topics such as refugees, for example, and will be invited to speak at also non-anthropological conferences. So how to reach the final scenario? I think this one is ideal, actually, for us. Peacock has some interesting suggestions. He says, for example, first, participate, then lead. Head projects that head beyond anthropology and beyond the academy. Second, formulate positive proposals. Do not be content to be mere social critics. So anthropologists are really good at being critics. And it is important to be critical to the current economic system, to the situation in the world. But we have to also propose solutions. We have to be applied also in that sense. And third, we have to reach out, think and communicate beyond the discipline and beyond the academy, to open out, to come out of the ivory tower. So I reformulated these three suggestions a bit, and here are my three rules for the future development of anthropology, which are actually based on these classical anthropological terms. First is exogamy. Reach outside your community, marry others, and engage with them. Cooperate with engineers, cooperate with biologists, cooperate with politicians. This is the rule number one. The second, kula. Exchange knowledge in your community. So don't keep it for yourself. Spread it out immediately. When you find out something new, spread it in your community. Anthropological, non-anthropological. And third rule, potlatch. Wrap it up and show it to others. So this is where anthropologists are really currently quite poor at. We have the best research teams in the world. Come on. We research sex. We research religion. We research migrations. But we have sometimes much difficulties to wrap it up and show it to others in a more presentable, in a more enjoyable way. But finally, my final advice, try not to overdo it, because otherwise you might get this. So this is actually a present that I got when I quit my job at Why the World Needs Anthropologists, and when I left my position of the convener of the network. So a huge golden poo. But actually, we had a poet in Slovenia who said, one of the best ones, Srečko Kosovel, who said that shit is gold and gold is shit. Somehow we have to start thinking also in this direction. Thank you very much.